Jamin AI. Jamin AI.
Okay, so get ready because today we are going deep on this idea of political nostalgia.
Yeah.
And the idea that Make America Great Again is actually like pulling from this ancient tradition, one that goes like all the way back to the Bible.
Wow, that's pretty far back.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay.
So our guide for this deep dive is an article by Jamin Bradley.
Yeah.
It's called The Perils of Political Nostalgia. And Bradley, this is interesting. He's a pastor and theologian.
Oh, wow. So he's coming at it from kind of a different angle.
Yeah, you don't usually think pastor and then like immediately politics.
Right.
But I think that's kind of what makes this article so interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's got this super unique perspective. He's
Yeah.
coming at it from like a theological angle, but also a social justice angle.
Like a double whammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the big question that we're going to be tackling today is this longing for a great past.
Right.
Is it always a good thing?
Good question.
And then whose good old days are we actually talking about?
Yeah, that's important because what's good for one person might not be good for another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bradley actually starts us off, get this, in the Bible.
Okay.
Psalm 137.
Okay, I'm familiar.
It's all about the Israelites who are stuck in exile in Babylon.
Right.
They're just like aching for their homeland, Jerusalem.
Yeah, just like longing for home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the twist.
Okay.
At the same time that this is happening, the prophets are actually condemning Jerusalem
Ooh.
for all of its social injustices, especially how the poor were treated.
Oh, so they're saying Jerusalem wasn't so great after all.
Well, yeah, they're basically saying, like, hold on, Jerusalem wasn't so great for everyone.
It really makes you think, whose rose-colored glasses are we looking through when we look back on the past?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bradley even quotes a theologian,
Okay.
Walter Brueggemann,
Yeah.
who says that this kind of nostalgia often ignores the folks who were struggling back then.
Yeah, it's easy to romanticize the past.
Totally.
But we have to remember that it wasn't always sunshine and roses.
Right.
There were real people facing real challenges.
Totally. And so I guess, like, when we hear all this talk about, like, returning to a greater past, are we thinking about the full picture?
It's a good question to ask.
Like, are we thinking about whose voices might be missing from that story?
Yeah, exactly. Whose story are we telling? Yeah, and like who benefits from those stories, right?
Right. And Bradley doesn't shy away from the dark side of all this.
Okay.
Like, he brings up Nazi Germany
Oh, wow.
and how they used nostalgia to gain power.
Huh. How so?
Well, he quotes this ethicist, David P. Gushi, who studied this. And what Gushi found was that, like, the Nazis were looking backward and
Right.
forward
At the same time.
at the same time.
Wow.
They yearn for this so-called lost Germany
Right.
while also, like, dreaming up this perfect future empire.
So they were like manipulating this yearning for the past to create their vision of the future.
Yeah. They were cherry-picking parts of history
Right.
and using it to manipulate people.
Yeah. It's like they were taking what they wanted and leaving the rest.
Right.
Mm.
It's scary how relevant that feels today.
I know, right?
Like, how many times have we heard politicians promise to bring back the glory days?
All the time.
Right.
Yeah. And it's easy to get swept up in that kind of rhetoric. But we have to be careful.
Yeah.
Who's actually benefiting from that kind of thinking?
Right.
And who gets left behind?
Bradley actually makes this point so clearly.
Yeah.
He says, our nostalgia is not everyone else's nostalgia.
That's a really good quote.
I know, right?
It's so simple, but so true.
And he gives this example of Trump
Okay.
bringing back this law from 1798.
Oh, wow. Old school.
Yeah, super old school.
Like, haven't we learned anything new since then?
Right. And Bradley says, old rules are replaced with new rules, typically because we learned something along the way.
Makes you think, like, what old rules are people longing for today?
Right. What if we brought back, like, some fashion trends from 1798?
Ooh. I don't think powdered wigs would be a good look for me.
Definitely not my style.
But seriously, though,
Yeah.
what practices or systems today do we have that might need updating,
Right.
even if they're, like, rooted in tradition?
Yeah. And then Bradley brings up this really incredible point about God.
Okay.
He says that even God admits to changing the rules sometimes.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's this radical idea that even the divine is open to, like, change,
Right.
evolution.
Yeah.
Bradley points out that in the Bible, God actually says, I gave them statutes that were not good.
Wow.
Yeah. And if God is willing to admit that and adjust things,
Right.
Why are we so resistant to change?
Especially when it comes to like creating a more just world.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it? Like maybe we're too stuck in our ways.
Yeah, I think Bradley's article really shows how much our own like personal nostalgia can shape like our political views, you know? Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe it can even like blind us to other people's experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it reminds us to really question our assumptions, especially when we hear people talking about, going back to a greater past.
Right. Like whose version of history are they talking about?
Exactly. And who are they leaving out of the picture?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So to wrap up this deep dive on political nostalgia, the big takeaway for me is like nostalgia is powerful.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to be careful about whose past we're actually glorifying and who's getting left out.
It's not about erasing history.
Right.
It's about looking at it critically, seeing the good and the bad.
For sure.
And learning from it all.
And here's a final thought for you to kind of like chew on.
Okay.
What are some of the statutes or systems today that maybe need a serious update?
Okay.
Even if they're super rooted in like tradition or nostalgia.
Yeah, like are we doing things just because that's how they've always been done?
Exactly. Even if they're not really working anymore.
Maybe it's time to ask ourselves, like, what would a future look like that actually works for everyone?
Right. Not just the people who like benefited from the good old days.
Yes, that's a great point.
So if you found this deep dive interesting and you want to explore more, I highly recommend checking out Jamin Bradley.
Yeah, he's a great writer.
He's super insightful.
Really makes you think.
Yeah, and challenges us to see things in new ways.
And as always, keep questioning.
Yeah.
Keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.
Exactly.
There's a story told of golden days where everything felt right in every way. But dig a little deeper, turn the page, you'll see shadows cast across that stage. The streets may seem so quiet in a dream, but not all was ever as it seemed. Some lived fine while others lost, and progress came at someone else's cost. So let's hold on tight to the light we've seen and the wrongs we've righted, step by step. Let's build this floor and make a future better than before. People, paper,